Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Romney Nelson. Welcome to the show, Romney. Welcome to Become Your Own Superhero.
Thanks, Laban. It's great to be here and really excited about being part of the podcast today.
Fantastic. And look, we're blessed to have you on the show, and looks like you might be coming to us live from your sauna in your house.
It's my almost like my log cabin on the Canadian estuary. It's it's part of my old reconverted shed, and so it's part of my studio now, and it's a great sort of area in the backyard where I get to look over the garden and enjoy the scenery, and but also have some nice quiet time away from currently having teenagers homeschooling. So it's a nice little outlet to be able to come out here.
Well, it looks great. It's a unique background from all of the. This is the 52nd podcast that's been recorded, and yours is certainly the most warming and comforting, from what I can tell, and not superimposed.
No, it's no superimposed here. It's it's the real deal. So I've got just everything I need in my own office space here. So it's great.
Now, speaking of homeschooling, Romney, you are no stranger to the education system. Can you tell us a little bit about your former life as a school teacher?
Yeah, so many years ago, I decided that phys ed teaching was an area that I had some passion for. Finishing up at school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and I thought phys ed teaching was an area that I was passionate about. So I decided to go into that, and I ended up teaching for just about 8 years. I was teaching in some independent schools in Melbourne, Victoria, and then I also taught in the Western District of Victoria in Australia, and also did some teaching briefly up in Queensland. But it was an area that I remember there was a distinct moment when I was in my final year of teaching, and a phys ed teacher there who was actually my teacher. I went to a school called Geelong College, and the phys ed teacher there was actually my teacher when I was a student. And he said to me, "Rom, when you get to my age, you've been in the education system for around about 30 years. My recommendation would be not to do that. I reckon you should go and do something with your life apart from teaching, where you can always come back to teaching if you want to." And so that's what I decided to do. I decided to give up teaching altogether, and my wife and I moved to Queensland. And the hard thing was that when I got up there was no work at all, and I ended up doing some work at a resort for about 8 months, and then I started up my own small business doing some personal training. And so, teaching was an initial part of what I wanted to do, but it was just a very start. And what teaching allowed me to do was develop confidence with dealing with people, particularly with schools and the education system. And it probably lends itself well to what I do now with the books and resources that I'm creating, and with the Life Graduate group, which is my business. Last year, I was actually doing a lot of public speaking in schools, running masterclasses. But as of COVID 2019, when that came into play for this year, all that suddenly disappeared. I couldn't facilitate any classes in schools, and therefore I had to make a pretty quick shift and pivot to creating the books and resources, which I actually love doing now. So it's been a great opportunity for me.
Well, I think you might have glossed over some of the real good stuff there, Mr. Nelson. And before we get stuck into this other Life Graduate genius, I'd like to just explore a bit more of your youth, because you come from an elite athlete background of sorts. Can you share with us some of those details?
Yeah, so I actually first represented Australia back in 1988. There was an unknown sport called dragon boat racing, not so unknown over in Asia, but in Australia, dragon boat racing was very new. And so I was only 13 years of age. And so it was at a time when I was actually a bit of a man child. I grew up very, very quickly. My stepfather was a part of a surf boat crew down at Torquay at a place called Jan Jack. And there was an opportunity for me to be part of this crew. And so it consists of, I think it was 22 rowers and a sweep. And my sort of part in the crew was to be able to sort of fit that role of being in the crew, to be able to help, fill that 22nd position. And what it ended up being is an opportunity for me to represent Australia. And then we went over to China, and we got fourth in the world. And that was an amazing opportunity. And so the World Championships were held in Hong Kong, and we also did some travel across to Beijing. And in 1988, when we went to Beijing, that was before everything happened in Tiananmen Square. And it was quite an interesting time back then. And I was a young blonde-headed boy, and I was treated very, very differently than the little Chinese children that were over there. So every person that came and saw me wanted to touch my hair, and so it was quite a surreal situation. Yeah, but yeah, so that was the start of my sporting career, and then I did a lot of athletics and represented Victoria in athletics. Surf lifesaving was another area where I was in the national championships and in Victorian championships. I won a number of events and then represented Victoria in the national championships and did well there. But it was, and I also did a lot of AFL football, cricket, and playing a fair bit of golf now. So it's, broad selection of different sports that I participate in.
Well, you give me the distinct impression that you're a man of action, and it's not even an impression. You are a man of action, given the sheer number of books that you've written. But we'll explore that shortly as well. I want to know from an influence on the rest of your life, being involved in elite level sport and athletics. Traveling overseas at such a young age, being part of. Even though it's not an Olympic sport, you're still the best in the country and then fourth in the world. What kind of impact does that have on the rest of your life in terms of how it shaped you now?
It was a real defining moment for me because from teenage years, I was actually suddenly thrown into a situation where I was working with elite athletes in their own right. So for dragon boat racing, for example, it was a very young sport in Australia, but I was suddenly thrown into a crew where there was Australian kayak representative or, champions. There was canoeists, there was surf boat rowers. There was suddenly into a field of men and me as a young boy. And it was an incredible situation to be able to sort of be part of at such a young age. And we were doing a lot of external activities and events and even, push-up-a-thons and things like that, where it really created a sounding sort of structure for me moving forward. And I was actually a real goal setter at a young age. So probably from that moment forward, I'd actually start to establish goals very early on. And they were mostly sporting goals, but then I started to expand that for, as I went, got a bit older, into academic as well. And it's actually one of those sort of things, when I do my presentations to schools, I've got this old Milo tin, and I actually bring the old Milo tin, and inside I've actually got my goals from when I was 14, 15, 16 years of age upwards. And it was incredible actually to demonstrate to them the goals that I had set down. And across those goals, at least 80 to 90% of those I've achieved now. And it goes back to significant evidence to prove that if you write your goals down, it's almost like a tattoo on your brain. You're subconsciously really focused on that. And so that sporting career early on really, really helped me. And I've been surrounded by high achievers all through my life. My stepbrother, Will Schofield, he played for West Coast Eagles and he was part of the grand final win a couple of years ago.
Wow.
So Will's sort of seen me grow up as well. And I've got a number of, like one of my other best mates, he made 300 runs against India for, the national Australia team when he was 15 or 16 years of age. And so I've always surrounded myself with people that are real goal achievers, and been really fortunate to have that. And so that did start off very young for me.
The 80% of goals that you'd achieved, the ones that you hadn't, do you remember what type of goals they were? And do you remember now why you didn't tick those ones off?
Yeah, a few of them are financial goals. They were pretty bullish at the time. I think when I was in year 11 at school, when I was about 16, 17 years of age, I think I wanted to earn $20,000. But it wasn't until the following year I actually achieved that, because I was very fortunate. I got a position with Coca-Cola as a sales merchandiser traveling around, and I was able to get that. But I think the goals, if you set your goals and they're stretch goals or stretch targets, you may not achieve them straight away, but what you're more than likely to do is probably get 90% of the way to achieving it. And 90% is much better than not really setting them and achieving them at all. And so there were a number of goals, perhaps even academically, where I may not have achieved them, but when you're on the reflection, it's interesting that if I had achieved those goals, maybe my life would have moved in a different direction and I may not be sitting where I am now. And so my mum always sort of, she's a strong believer in, it's not what you're dealt with in life, it's how you deal with it. And I do think that there's certain things that play out in your life which, might be meant to be, but I also think that there's opportunities passing you all the time. And so having these goals at a younger age allowed me to be focused on what I really wanted. And I think that's the pathway I've sort of taken now, and why I've been so driven to take action every single day as well, to achieve the goals that I really want to achieve.
And it's not like you're the first person in the history of the world, Romney, to extol the virtues of goal setting. And I'm curious to know why things like goal setting aren't part of curriculum at primary school with kids.
Yeah, there's been a bit of a shift probably in the last 12 months to a couple of years, where there's been a lot of mindfulness activities going on, but there's still, I still haven't seen much evidence in education about goal setting. And it was interesting, the last couple of years when I've been doing my master classes in schools, the number of students, if I get the students to put their hands up, how many have actually established goals before or even written down goals, you may be lucky to get one or two children out of a class of 25 or 30. The percentage is so small, and it's something where it probably needs to be driven from the home front as well. And so if mum and dad don't set goals, then the children are very unlikely to do it themselves. And probably I was lucky where my parents probably didn't write goals down, but they were very focused on what they wanted to do. And I think there's a big difference though. There's a lot of people that subconsciously might have goals that they want to achieve, but the physical process of writing them down can be a massive game changer, because suddenly you're becoming very conscious of what you want. You start looking for the opportunities that you really need to obtain, and you've suddenly got a pathway that you can follow, and you can start to map out a plan and develop those coordinates. And if you don't have a goal, if you don't have that set target of what you want to achieve, then you're unlikely to follow the right pathway to achieve what you need to achieve. So yeah, it's the school children, I think, would greatly benefit from just some very basics of goal setting and establishing, even if it was 3 or 4 goals. And I've developed some resources now which provides that opportunity for students to do that in journals, in school diaries and things like that. And I think it's just an introduction which they can then work on it and move from there. But I think it would greatly benefit them if there was more of that in schools.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Romney. And the thing I think about is, if I was the education minister, I would bring in the fundamentals of life, finances, like domestic chores. And it's astounding how many young kids have zero clue on how to just manage their life. Like it really blows my mind. And they don't see it pertinent to teach this in schools. And maybe there's more of it at the higher end of the education spectrum from a private school point of view. But yeah, something that's really of interest of me, and because it's not like, you have written a book called Magnetic Goals, which was endorsed by Brian Tracy, everybody, who, if you don't know who Brian Tracy is, pull your head out underneath the rock that you've been living under and do a quick search on Brian Tracy. He is largely regarded as the godfather of goal setting. Would you disagree?
No, yeah. And Brian's had a huge influence on my life over a number of years now. And I love the approach he takes to goal setting, and he's probably the way that he can actually adapt the philosophy of goal setting to make it simplified and to bring it together. And when you're talking about goal setting, and I've put it in magnetic goals as well, and we've spoken about this previously, was that there's an important element of goal setting which some people tend to focus on. Maybe they think if they just set some financial goals, that's good enough, or if they just set some fitness goals, that's good enough. Well, the best way to goal set is actually, if you think of a quadrant and have health, wealth, self, and happiness, and if you can throw a dart and get the middle point of that would be the ideal of your goals. So if you can set your goals around your health and your habits, and making sure that you've got a balance there, your wealth, so ensuring that you're doing things towards generating wealth activities with passive income activities. Your self is actually doing things that keep you happy. So it might be doing an annual golf trip with a group of mates. It might be doing something with your family, and keeping that balance in place. And then the happiness area is your relationships, and your relationships with the people that are important to you, and those nurturing relationships which, going through good times and bad times, they're going to be there. So the health, wealth, self, and happiness, if you can get a balance between all those four, then that's the ideal, and that's what you're looking for. And you're never probably going to get at the perfect balance between all of those four. One might be up, one might be down, and you need to work hard every single day to develop the right habits to achieve those goals. But that's probably an area of goal setting that people probably don't focus on. And so when I have my clients and we're talking about goal setting, I always talk about that balance and not trying to have too many goals in one area. So you can't be so focused on having your fitness goals, because if you're training 6 to 7 days a week and you're out of home a lot, then you might be letting your relationship down. You may not be spending the time with the people that you really need to, because ultimately you don't want to win the marathon and turn around, there's no one there to greet you when you come across the finishing line. You want that hug at the end of the finishing line. So that's just something important to consider when you're looking at the goal setting. And Brian Tracy also talks about that balance as well when he talks about goal setting.
Well, one of the great things I ever did for myself, Romney, was I got access to a life coach at the start of the end of 2017. And she was based in Mauritius. She was one of my friend's mother-in-law. I was like, do you know her life coach? And he's like, my mother-in-law, she's based in Mauritius. And she was a life coach, a career coach, and a style, like a stylist. I didn't need any styling help from her, thankfully. But the other two, a truckload. And I was coming out the back end of a really, really hard, like devastating breakup. I was at a bit of a crisis, actually. I was going to give away my career in recruitment and move to the Sunshine Coast to help support my brother and become a personal trainer and live at home. Like, it was, with the benefit of hindsight, people around me must have been going, is Laban okay? But the thing about, her name is Dolly Chung, and she gets a special shout out in my life because she helped me a lot. But we were going through goal setting, and I'd never really set goals prior to that. I never knew about it. I hadn't done the reading that I've done now. And when I look, I've got the notes in my beautiful, whatever these are called, the moleskin thing. And I look back, and there's this great section about my ideal woman, because I had been a prolific prolific sex addict and online date. I've been on 150 first dates. So that doesn't exclude any follow-up dates, which there was, and that was over 4 years. And of the 4 years, 2 years, I was in committed relationships, right? So it was about 1.3 a week. It was a lot.
Yes.
And when I met Anna, my now fiance, in the streets of Melbourne, it wasn't through an online thing. I just saw her randomly in the street, went up and approached her. About a month later, when things were starting to get serious, we'd both set these lists of what we wanted in our partner. And I had written mine in explicit detail, and so had she. And it was jaw-dropping going back over those notes. Like, I think I put, I want a European woman, or Eastern European. She's Russian. Like,
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So
again, it shows you the power of the subconscious mind, and how if you obviously, you knew in detail who you wanted to be with and the kind of person they were going to be, and so subconsciously you started to seek out those people, and you became, obviously that attraction was there, and whether you knew it or not, your mind was working behind the scenes, because you'd actually explicitly written down who you wanted to be and what that kind of person needed to be like. And so it's incredible that those opportunities can happen regardless, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a financial goal you want to achieve, whether it's a fitness goal. And some people have written page after page of goals 10 years ago, and they lose it. And then they find it when they're moving home, and they reflect through it, and they will be amazed at how many of those goals they actually have achieved. Now, it's probably something I don't advocate in writing the goals down once and not looking at it for 10 years, but it just demonstrates the power of writing them down. And then, I always advocate for goals to be written down and to be reviewed daily if you can. And even if it's just 5 minutes setting aside, part of your daily habits would be to, it could be a laminated A4 piece of paper with your 12 months goals, and you just look at them daily. And it's just something, I think it's really powerful. It's underrated, and it's something that can really accelerate you to achieving greater things. And there's nothing better than having a checklist of goals that you're achieving, and there's small little actions that you're doing every single day. And it's that momentum that you get. And with momentum, you get confidence, and with that, you get power, and you suddenly start to attract more things into your life because you have that momentum.
what's the greatest goal that you've ever set that's come to fruition in your life, in your own opinion?
I think probably establishing my own business. I'd always work for other people, and I'd work for, so it was a teacher, then work for the AFL. Then I work for Australia's largest provider of before and after school care programs, and help that business to grow to eventually be sold for over $400 million. And so then the next business I went to was Australia's largest dental provider, and helped that double in growth. And it got to the end of that point in time in 2017. And I just thought, well, do you know what? I think it's time for me to take that leap of faith and to have confidence in what I am as a person, and the relationships I have with people, and how I can build that to benefit my family. Because I want my family to see what happens when you do set big goals, and what can happen if you take that leap of faith and you have confidence, and you cut the tether from being employed and having a safe job. Well, they call it safe, but no job's ever safe. And we've just found out that out in the past 6 months. You could have been employed for 20 years and suddenly you're made redundant, and you've lost your job. So never think that there's a safe job, but people consider that if they're on a payroll, that's a safe job. And so for me, my biggest goal was actually starting my own business, having the confidence to do that and to step off the cliff. And they do say that the universe has got a funny way of catching you if you do take that leap. And I've found that personally, that it's a lot of hard work, but I'm loving it, and I couldn't be happier. couldn't be happier.
Well, I think we should explore this a little bit, Romney, because you say 2017 you went out on your own?
I started, what I did is I gradually pulled away from the full-time employment. So I was fortunate enough that the employers that I was working for allowed me to start working. It was initially 4 days a week, 3 days a week. And then I actually, cut the tether and started doing things for myself full-time from probably halfway through last year, where it was just full-time me.
Is this the hardest thing you've ever done?
It would be, because at a time when I thought that things were going to fly in a certain direction, things suddenly, with a handbrake, went on pretty quickly. Where I thought I was going to be in schools facilitating programs, I've got another business called Total School Solutions, and it was all about creating financial efficiencies in schools. And I had meetings set up ready to go at the beginning of this year, and this is going to be my launch to be able to take my businesses to the next level. Suddenly, schools didn't want people on site. They became very insular. They just wanted to make sure that their families were being cared for. The health of their children was paramount, or the students were paramount. And so that suddenly stopped. The programs I was going to be running in schools suddenly stopped. And so what it allowed me to do, though, was to reevaluate how I was going to run my business. And on reflection, it's the best thing that's ever happened, because when I was running programs in schools, if it was just going to be me driving around for the point in time, until I'd maybe got facilitators that could do it for me. But what resources and books have allowed me to do is have a greater reach globally, to far greater reach than I've ever thought I would have. And so I've got readers from my books across the globe. And now I've been able to establish the Life Graduate Publishing Group to have, I've now got closing on 100 resources and books, which from beginning of the year to now, there's been a lot of work invested into doing that. But I would never have done that unless I'd taken that leap of faith to do my own business, and for what's played out this year, to take that opportunity. And I think that's the biggest thing. For every storm cloud that comes across, there's a rainbow on the other side. You just need to make sure that you look for those opportunities when they present themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting talking to anyone that's experienced this COVID scenario and how they're responding to it. And I've heard some people say, "Oh man, I'm so bored." And I'm thinking, how could you not use this as an opportunity to do something great? And I've spoken about this publicly. It's been one of the greatest things to ever happen to me. And life is still not without its challenges, and Christ knows what the future's going to hold, right? Because I was the same as you. I had a bunch of speaking gigs lined up. I had a pathway, a proven pathway to a successful speaking career that I was going to follow. Now that's gone out the window. And I worked in recruitment for 14 years prior to this, and I was an IT specialist, and I had probably one of the most in-demand recruitment roles in the country as of January, and then February, see you later. Right. And that does certain things to your ego and your perception. And I must admit, at times, Romney, I've found myself a little bit disillusioned with the future. Do you have any ideas or suggestions on how to mitigate those feelings?
It's about, again, there's a few things that I want to probably come into play here, and it's a combination of a number of things. It's understanding that the future's there's the future, but there's what you obviously want to have. What your future looks like now. It can play out very, very differently, and you need to know exactly what you want, and work hard every single day and take the actions every single day that you want. There's no point sitting back and waiting for life to happen. You need to actually be proactive and make it happen for you. And so for anyone that's having challenges at the moment, and there's challenges everywhere, there's relationship challenges, there's employment challenges, there's financial challenges that are happening, and we're all going through this together. And it's one of those things where you need to work really hard to identify what is really important to you. What is it that's going to drive you every single day to get out of bed early, to go and do your morning walk or your run, to get into the office and really do what you think is going to be important to your life moving forward. So for anyone that's sort of struggling at the moment, there's something I call the goal loop, which I think comes into play really well here. So the goal loop was established to be able to help people develop goals, habits, and actions, and then get an outcome from that. So for the part of the goal loop to make that work for you, and particularly in the time right now where people are struggling, it's about establishing a goal. So you're almost reverse engineering what you want to happen in the future. So you establish your goals, then when you establish your goals, you then have an opportunity to develop the right supportive habits, which will play into that. So one of your goals might be that you want to, for example, lose 5 kilograms, and so part of that would be that you then need to develop the right supportive habits for that to happen. So what do those supportive habits look like? And that might be that you need to start to get up a little bit earlier. It might be an extra half an hour in the morning, because then you can do your workout or your sit-ups and your push-ups. And so it's about establishing those incremental habits very slowly. But by having a long-term approach to this, it allows you to be able to clearly identify what those habits need to be. Then once you've developed your habits, you've obviously got daily actions that you need to take. And for anyone having actions in place, it might be as simple as having 1 or 2 actions you write down every single day. Just simple things which get you runs on the board and start to build your confidence. So you've got your goals, you've got your habits, you're doing your daily actions. When you start to achieve your goals, you need to celebrate as well. So celebrating your goals is really important, because firstly, it's a subconscious win as well. And when you develop that, and we spoke earlier about it, so getting that confidence going, and then you learn from those wins, and then you redevelop and remodel your goals moving forward. And so that's where the goal loop sort of comes in. And for people right now, they need to start to think of something that's important and relevant to them and what they would love to achieve. And if you've got that written down and you have a timeline against it, that will really help you to achieve those goals and to get out of a bit of a rut, because there are people that I feel for, because they might have lost their employment. Their relationship might be struggling because they're in a lockdown situation, and they've got children at home that they're homeschooling, and they can't see through the cloud at the moment, and they need to really take time out for themselves, even if it's just an hour, and identify what do they want, where do they want themselves to be in 12 months' time. This will pass. It's actually one of the interviews that you conducted with Les Brown. He spoke about it, saying that it's one of those situations. It might be a recorrection. It's a correction in probably our lifetime, where we have an opportunity now to really Control Alt Delete and make sure that we're actually resetting ourselves, and we have an opportunity to push forward. And it might be that opportunity that we need. And I think many of us need to step back, reevaluate where we are, take the opportunities that present themselves, but know clearly the clarity of what you really want from now into the future, and develop the right habits around that.
It's really great advice, Romney, and if people are listening to this or watching this, which one of your many books can they find this particular information if they want to go over it again? Is this Magnetic Goals?
Yeah, well, Magnetic Goals was the first book I established, and that's really establishing the right goals for you. Probably The Habit Switch, which is probably my best performing book, and that really breaks down developing the right supportive habits that are right for you and relevant for you, and how to implement them into your life incrementally. And The Habit Switch is probably, look, I don't like choosing babies, between favorite books, but The Habit Switch, I feel, is something, a book that really resonates with people, because I'm not trying to promote for people to develop habits very quickly. They need to be incremental habits that you build slowly with a long-term approach. And it's by doing the long-term approach that you get the greatest success, because with incremental growth and habit stacking, you start to get results which are really favorable to you because you got that long-term approach. So probably the habit switch, in summary.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, if you focus on Brian Tracy, I could be wrong, but I think he's written over 60 books. And if you made him pick, one, like, sure, you could do it, but it's better that you probably engross yourself in as many as you can, because you start to get a really good feel for what works for you, and the language that you use. And just, touching on what you were talking about earlier, Anna and I have put a whole bunch of Post-it notes on the front door. And so, because we've attached our masks to the front door so we don't forget them. And so now there's Post-it notes there and on the fridge with regards to, are you sure you want that? Like, because in Melbourne at the moment, we're in a stage of lockdown where the supermarket shuts at 7:30 and there's a curfew at 8, which is kind of a blessing in disguise because it stops that late night snacking. So for that, I'm sort of grateful, but it's immediately had an effect. I've gotten rid of the scales out of the bathroom, which are digital BMI, biometric scales rather. And I became obsessed with tracking my weight because, as you know, we spoke offline, I've got to reset some of my weight goals to the weight that I feel like is a good weight for me and the best representation of me practicing what I preach. So, and that's just been an evolution. And I have found it challenging at times to try and put the amount of effort on the right area. And what I mean by that is, like, I spent the last 5 years so focused on developing, getting rid of addiction, developing mindset, finding the person of my dreams, fostering much better relationships, that I neglected the financial side of things. And you really nailed it before when you're saying you got to find that balance and throw that dart, sort of get it in the middle. And the timing of the financial thing is been more magnified by the current predicament. Is there a particular piece of advice or resource that's really red hot on developing wealth that you can recommend?
There's so many books. Depends on where you are in your life. And so there was a book that I read many, many years ago by Paul Clitheroe called Making Money. And it was a book that resonated with me really, really well, very on, because Paul Clitheroe is a very well-known financial guru in Australia. And I remember seeing him speak when I was about 14 years of age. He came to my hometown to speak. And so Making Money was one of the first books. So it depends on what stage of life you're at. If you're just getting into things, then a book, so Making Money by Paul Clitheroe. You could also invest your time into a book, through Scott Pape, The Barefoot Investor, Australian, very well known. That book sold well over 1 million copies now, and that's for families. And so that's another really, really good book. And there's off the top of my head, I can't think what the book was called.
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill. That's an amazing book as well. And there's so many books out there that it just depends on what your focus is. Is it to generate passive income through stocks and shares? Is it through property management? Is it through building a business? So, for example, Peter Switzer, another Australian author, he's written a great book about financials and about building your wealth through different asset classes. So, yeah, Think and Grow Rich is probably one of those ones where it's the legendary book. Many people have read it. Many people have not just read it once, but 10 times. And you can highlight sections throughout it, which it's amazing how it's a book where you grab new information every time you read it. And I think it's one of those ones where it has an instant connection with people because there's something in there for everybody. And again, it's almost like goal setting as well and thinking forward and subconsciously planning what you want to do. So that's been a book that it really resonated with me as well.
Fantastic. What's some outrageous goal that you've set for yourself, Romney, that you're willing to share with our audience? so that we can refer back in 5 or 10 years and see how well it worked out for you?
Yeah. So one of my big goals at the moment is in 5 years' time, I'd like to have 1,000 resources that are available through the Life Graduate Publishing Group. So it's a combination of books and resources. So it's a 5-year goal of mine. And so the Life Graduate Publishing Group, so I'm up to just over 100 at the moment. And so I need to accelerate that. And so my growth and my goals are all geared towards 1,000 resources. And there's some financial goals on there that I keep pretty close to my chest, but I'm happy to share the 1,000 resources.
Yeah. Just in case people come and rob you.
They can grab the 1,000 books if they want off the bookshelf and they can run. But
my goal is to rob Romney Nelson when he hits that $50 million mark.
Well, if they do, they'll be much smarter for it. They'll have a lot of resources on their hands.
Probably worth a lot more than the 50 million.
Yeah, but it's one of the goals that I reflect on daily. And something else which might help people as well, which I've found really helpful to me, is I've actually done a recording of me in 5 years' time. So it's I've just done it on my phone, and it's me talking. I'm sitting in a special location where I want to have a holiday house, and it's me in the future talking about what each of my years are going to look like. And yeah, so you've just got to, it's an out of body experience when you record it, but you've got to have confidence in the recording. And so every day I listen to that recording, and it only takes about 5 minutes, but it actually keeps me on point. It lets me know, it's a good reflection tool to know where I'm at and what I need to do from every single day moving forward and the actions I need to take. So that's something I'd encourage people to do, is their own affirmations, their own meditation affirmation, goal setting affirmation.
Right. Well, this is the reason why I love podcasts, because this is the gold right here for me. I want to know what's the language that you use, and are you speaking as if it's already happened when you are recording this, or it's?
I do. Yes. I, for example, it might say, Rom, I'm currently sitting here on the couch overlooking the ocean in your beautiful holiday house. What you're going to achieve in 2020 is huge. You're going to actually move to getting 150 resources by the end of 2020. By the end of 2021, you'll be achieving far better, greater goals than you ever thought possible. And you will have 175 resources which are available globally to the market. And so what I end up doing is I speak as though they've been achieved, and I'm talking, as someone that's been there, and I'm on a reflection of what I'm doing. So in 5 years' time, I want to play that recording. I want to be sitting on the couch in my holiday house overlooking the ocean, and I want to be knowing that everything that I've said I was going to achieve, I have. And I know if I play that frequently enough, every single day, the opportunities will start to present themselves and will start to happen, and I'll make them happen. And there's no turning back now. I've made a promise to myself, and I want to deliver on it.
I love this, because I'm not a huge fan of typing and less of writing as well, but I love recording. So, because I have done this type of stuff, but not with any intent. And you've just given me some structure. And I think, just as an idea, there's no reason why you couldn't release a short audio book, like either giving examples or showing people how to record this, because I know people will be listening to this going, yeah, but I sound like a fucking idiot. Who cares? Who's going to be the idiot when you're sitting in your holiday home overlooking the ocean?
That's right. That's right. And
did it feel weird? Did it feel weird first?
It did, yeah. It did feel weird when I recorded it. And to be honest, I've probably done 3 or 4 of variations of it. So over the past 12 months, there's been a few different variations, because I've actually accelerated beyond what my first recording had done. So when I did my first recording, I said that I was going to complete 50 books in 2020. Well, I've surpassed that so far. And so I can't listen to that anymore because I've gone past it. And each recording I do gets better and better. And as in, I get more confident in what I'm doing. And the other thing which you might like to incorporate into it, which I've done as well, is I've got a special place down at Lorne on the coast, and I've actually recorded the sound of the ocean. And in the background, when I'm doing my goals, I can hear the ocean. And so when I'm talking about sitting, listening to, or, achieving my goals, it feels like I'm there. And if you already feel like you're there, then there's nothing stopping you achieving it. So it's something, if you're not great at revisiting goals or writing down goals every single day. So some people, like Brian Tracy, actually recommends writing down your goals every single day and repeating that. And that becomes pretty hard sometimes. But if you can just get your phone out and have your headset on and just take 5 minutes out of every day, that affirmation into your own voice, and it's something I really encourage you to do, because it's not hard to put together and it can be a life-changing impact for you. And it's something that I greatly benefit from every day.
Well, it had a profound impact on me, just you reading out your own thing, Romney, because like I was getting shivers down my spine. I don't get that response unless something really deeply resonates and connects with me. So I think you're onto something there. And I really think an instructional audiobook would be another one of your amazing publications, which is how many? So you're up to 100 publications now, and is it 11 books?
Yeah, I've done 11 books. So when I say the 11 books, there's 5 30,000 word books. And then I've done some shorter books, like they're, I call them the 30-minute quick guides. And so there's been some 30-minute quick guides, which are about 5,000 words each, but collectively 11 books. And then my resources, developed those. And there's also, I've translated them to German and to Spanish as well. And so that collection sort of gets bigger. So yeah, it's what you sort of learn through the process that is empowering, because you actually get to work out what works well for you, what is something that's going to resonate with people, and continue to improve and provide high quality content and books as well, because anyone could get on and produce something in a day's work, but it's not going to be an ongoing something that's going to resonate with people long term. You need to provide high quality, and I continue to evolve as well with the work that I do. But yeah, it's something I love doing, and those resources, again, I would never be able to have the impact by driving around to schools doing presentations if I continued along that path. Whereas my books now, with the platforms that are available for audiobooks, ebooks, paperbacks, hardbacks, I can reach a global audience, and that's something which I can continue to grow. And there's no reason I can't get to 1,000 resources in 5 years' time as well.
Wow. How can people find you, Romney?
So the best way would be through my website, thelifegraduate.com. So www.thelifegraduate.com. And on that website, there's information about me and my coaching. There's information about, so all my books and resources are on that on the website. So you can check them out. And there's some YouTube videos of mine as well. So if anyone wants to connect through that website, then I'd love to have a chat with them as well.
Brilliant. I think this is a good time to wrap this up, Romney, because what I really truly feel like is that we need to have you back on, because we haven't even scratched the surface of the stuff that I was thinking about, but it needs its own extra show. What do you want to finish on for our audience?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to probably finish on is that, yeah, the actions you take today are going to be the things that really have an impact later on for you as well. And so don't do what the average person is prepared to do. Do more than that. So if you want to be someone that really accelerates your life and achieves more than what you ever thought you want to achieve, Well, don't just be average. Don't just do the things that the average person in the street are going to do. If you want to really accelerate your life, then be bold. Be, have a big, bold dream of what you want to achieve, and take daily action every single day. Write the things down that you want to achieve, and there's no stopping you. You'll achieve everything you want to achieve.
Ladies and gentlemen, Romney Nelson.